forest primeval. The murmuring pines and the hemlocks, bearded with moss and in garments green, indistinct in the twilight, stand like druids of eld with voices sad and prophetic. In the Acadian land, on the shores of the basin of Minas, distant, secluded still, the little village of Grand Pré lay in the fruitful valley. Thus dwelt together in love these simple Acadian farmers, dwelt in the love of God and of man. Somewhat apart from the village and near the basin of Minas, Benedict Bellefontaine, the wealthiest farmer of Grand Pré, dwelt on his goodly acres, and with him directing his household, gentle Evangeline lived, his child and the pride of the village. Fair was she to behold, that maiden of 17 summers. Many a suitor came to her door by the darkness befriended, but among all who came, young Gabriel only was welcome. Gabriel Lajeunesse, the son of Basil the blacksmith. 4 days now are past since the English ships at their anchors ride in the Gaspereau's mouth, with their cannons pointed against us. What their design may be is unknown, but all are commanded on the morrow to meet in the church, where His Majesty's mandate will be proclaimed as law in the land. And lo, with a summons sonorous sounded the bell from its tower. Thronged ere long was the church with men. Then uprose their commander and spake from the steps of the altar, holding aloft in his hand, with its seals, the royal commission. You are convened this day, he said, by His Majesty's orders. Clement and kind has he been, but how you have answered his kindness, let your own hearts reply. I must bow and obey and deliver the will of our monarch, namely that all your lands and dwellings and cattle of all kinds forfeited be to the crown, and that you yourselves from this province be transported to other land. God grant that you may dwell there ever as faithful subjects, a happy and peaceable people. The Acadian peasants descended down from the church to the shore amid their wives and their daughters. Halfway down to the shore, Evangeline waited in silence, not overcome with grief, but strong in the hour of affliction. Calmly and sadly she waited until the procession approached her, and she beheld the face of Gabriel, pale with emotion. Tears filled her eyes, and eagerly running to meet him, clasped she his hands and laid her head on his shoulder and whispered, Gabriel, be of good cheer, for if we love one another, nothing in truth can harm us, whatever mischances may happen. Busily plied the freighted boats, and in the confusion wives were torn from their husbands, and mothers too late saw their children left on the land extending their arms with wildest entreaties. So unto separate ships were Basil and Gabriel carried, while in despair on the shore Evangeline stood with her father. Columns of shining smoke uprose, and flashes of flame were thrust through their folds and withdrawn, like the quivering hands of a martyr. Overwhelmed with the sight, yet speechless, the priest and the maiden gazed on the scene of terror that reddened and widened before them. And as they turned at length to speak to their silent companion, lo, from his seat he had fallen, and stretched abroad on the seashore motionless lay his form, from which the soul had departed. And the maiden knelt at her father's side, and wailed aloud in her terror. Friendless, homeless, hopeless, they wandered from city to city, from the cold lakes of the north to sultry southern savannas, from the bleak shores of the sea to the lands where the Father of Waters seizes the hills in his hands and drags them down to the ocean. She would commence again her endless search and endeavor, sometimes in churchyards strayed, and gazed on the crosses and tombstones, sat by some nameless grave, and thought that perhaps in his bosom he was already at rest, and she longed to slumber beside him. Sometimes a rumor, a hearsay, an inarticulate whisper came with its airy hand to point and beckon her forward. Gabriel Lajeunesse, said others. Oh yes, we have seen him. He is a voyager in the lowlands of Louisiana. Far down the beautiful river, past the Ohio shore and past the mouth of the Wabash, into the golden stream of the broad and swift Mississippi, floated a cumbrous boat that was rowed by Acadian boatmen. At the helm sat a youth with countenance thoughtful and careworn. Gabriel it was. Swiftly they guided along close under the lee of the island, but by the opposite bank and behind a screen of palmettos, so that they saw not the boat where it lay concealed in the willows. As from a magic trance the sleepers awoke, and the maiden said with a sigh to the friendly priest, O Father Felician, something says in my heart that near me Gabriel wanders. Many years she lived as a sister of mercy, frequenting lonely and wretched roofs in the cloudless lanes of the city. Noiselessly she moves about the assiduous, careful attendants, moistening the feverish lip and the aching brow, and in silence closing the sightless eye of the dead and concealing their faces, where on the pallets they lay like drifts of snow by the roadside. Suddenly, as if arrested by fear or feeling a wonder, still she stood, with her colorless lips apart, while a shudder ran through her frame. On the pallet before her was stretched the form of an old man. Long and thin and gray were the locks that shaded his temples, but as he lay in the morning light, his face for a moment seemed to assume once more the forms of its earlier manhood. Heard he that cry of pain, and through the hush that succeeded, whispered a gentle voice, "Gabriel, O my beloved." Sweet was the light of his eyes, but it suddenly sank into darkness, as when a lamp is blown out by a gust of wind at a casement. Still stands the forest primeval, but far away from its shadow, side by side in their nameless graves, the lovers are sleeping. Under the humble walls of the little Catholic churchyard, in the heart of the city, they lie unknown and unnoticed.